What is going on, everybody? Paul here, coming at you with your crypto coffee update. You know what it is, the news, conferences, events, and litany of other information that may be coming out of this fantastic episode about all the things happening in the budding financial technology space we call crypto. And for the veterans in the space with me who've been following this channel, I think you know what time it is. It is time for the ceremonious but never sanctimonious simultaneous sip that bonds us all together in caffeinated unison. So, join me now. Good stuff. All right. Let's go ahead and get into the happenings of the day, everyone. We have Crypto Panic available here in front of us. It is a fantastic news aggregation resource, so if you too have a voracious hunger for relevant information in the interim between the Crypto Coffee updates, you can jump in here, and they have all the aggregated links to the Twitter threads, the Reddit threads, news articles, price action, pretty much everything you'd want to see before sitting down with your good buddy Paul and getting a quick update. So let's go ahead and jump into the main news of the day. We have the Tron project being accused of misleading developers in a $1 million DApp contest. Now, this is something that is unfortunate, but perhaps not all too surprising, depending on how you view some of the previous information that we've discussed on this channel. Now, we'll get into the meat of the matter here momentarily. However, I wanted to help to set the stage for those who maybe are new here at Cryptide, or maybe just aren't too familiar with Tron as a whole, kind of give you some information as to why they've garnished a reputation as not only a project that engages in shady activity, but a project that may potentially be a long-running, high-valuation scam. Now, that's not something that I'm willing to put forward. After all, those kind of claims that go often unsubstantiated are really speculation for the time being. However, nonetheless, we will go off of what has empirically happened, and you can make those judgment calls for yourself. So let's go ahead and jump in as to what we're looking at. Now, one empirical thing that, that's funny, I was having a conversation, this is a bit anecdotal, with an individual who was talking about Tron, best thing since sliced bread, next big thing, and I mentioned that they have indeed copied their white paper and have had some other issues, and it was rebutted that this is old information and therefore irrelevant. Now, old information does kind of lose its impact as time goes on. However, I believe things such as this really show not only the intent of the project, but also, to a degree, the integrity of the individuals behind it. Now, this is something that can change over time, and nothing is set in stone. However, as said, let's break down some of the empirical realities that we face. The Tron white paper is pretty much fully copied or plagiarized. They've taken things from IPFS or Filecoin, ETH contracts, all kinds of stuff about P2P messaging systems, and nothing new about token mechanics. This was lauded as a huge breaking story at the time, led to a lot of laughs since Tron was still relatively new. However, Tron pushed on, and despite their unethical repurposing, to be very kind, of many other different projects' information in their own white paper, they pressed on, perhaps not with the best taste in the crypto community's mouth. Moving on, we also have, whoops, that's for a bit later, Tron switched from proof of stake to delegated proof of stake. Now, just a quick breakdown, proof of stake essentially allows individuals to receive proportional rewards relative to the amount of tokens they have staked on a respective network. Said another way, if there are, let's say everyone on a proof of stake network is staking, just for sake of simplicity, not something that happens in reality too often at all. Now, I have 10% of the total tokens in this proof of stake network. As I'm staking, I will, on average, receive 10% of the associated block rewards. Good thing to keep in mind, the less people that are staking, the higher proportional rewards that are paid out to the individuals that are staking. Now, this is different from a delegated proof of stake system. In a delegated proof of stake system, you have pre-selected delegates, generally a healthy amount ranging between 26 to 100 or so. I think 101 is the amount in the ARC ecosystem. Now, these delegates are chosen through a varying degree depending on which architecture you're talking about. Sometimes it's the total amount of coins held, but more often than not, it is a voting round in which individuals use their tokens on the network to vote for their preferred delegate. These delegates are called various things in various ecosystems. In EOS, they're called block producers. In some other systems, they're called witnesses. Others call them delegates. But in Tron, they're called super representatives. So these delegates, or super representatives in Tron, are pre-selected through voting. This adds in a unique and interesting consideration that the individuals who hold a large amount of tokens can in turn disproportionately affect how voting commences. It's called the Pareto principle. Generally, 80% of activity in anything comes from 20% minority. This is true in marketing and sales and pretty much anything in life, and it's very interesting how expressed you can see this principle in pretty much anywhere. It's really, really interesting. But with that said, it introduces a unique variable for not just Tron, but any delegated proof of stake system. Now, for more information, here's the article we previously had a sneak peek of. They explain delegated proof of stake like I'm 5. Breaks things down in a pretty succinct way, definitely gives some great information. They call it a technological democracy, which I think is a bit of a misnomer, but for the ease of brevity and the sake of accuracy, I think it's pretty true. And that entails all the good and the bad things about the potential corruptibility of the individuals who serve as representatives in any technological democratic ecosystem, as it's been termed here. Now, moving on with Tron, they've also had some further issues after the white paper, including a repurposing of the Ethereum J library, which isn't really a bad thing at all. After all, open source projects and decentralization means that individuals can repurpose open source information for their own aims and their own ends in a system that ultimately benefits everyone. However, the major issue is the unscrupulous nature by which this information was repurposed. It seems Tron or their team or someone out there took the LGPL information, which essentially says that, hey, this is from the Ethereum team, this is who built it, give them a shout out, good stuff, feel free to use this as you see fit. They removed this from the code base, essentially, assumingly, attempting to make the Ethereum J project look as though it's something they built completely uniquely. It's an innovation from Tron, they did it, it's not from Ethereum, and that was really, really shady. You can see here that the individual calling it out received a disproportionate amount of upvotes, and the Tron Foundation themselves received a lot of downvotes for the said unscrupulous activity. Now, moving right along, here's the main issue and meat of the matter of the day. Something fishy going on with the Tron Accelerator Development Contest. Now, we're not going to read this entire thing verbatim. I'm going to link it below in the description, as with all the information we discuss, so you too can get an idea as to what's going on and come to your own conclusions. Now, Tron Accelerator is a $1 million contest, as said, and here it is. Yeah, the big takeaway. That's really what I wanted to show, since, like I said, you guys can pick through this as you see fit. They changed the prizes after the contest ended. They increased the amount of individuals participating from around 58, I think, to 108, meaning that the proportional prizes were decreased per individual, which is something that I'm sure individuals working to build these dApps were not happy to learn of. They allowed clones to win, but not the original clone on TRX. This is a very simple game that was ported. It had to do with shrimps, and somebody else repurposed it to be ants instead of shrimps, and the clone won. They allowed contestants to win who didn't meet the criteria, such as being on the mainnet. They allowed projects that aren't open source to win, which was another stipulation. The grand prize winner is a mysterious project with very little info available. They haven't posted a public list of the winners, and some blatant Ponzi games won. Now, these are things that I can verify. However, this is something that has left me a bit perturbed. I can't demonstrate to you that I can verify this, unfortunately. Here is the response from Tron, the official response from Justin's son, Tron, that has been removed completely. I read this response in its entirety and had some notes available to discuss with you as we examine the situation as it unfolded. However, it looks as though that Justin's son was dissatisfied with the reception of this response and has subsequently completely removed it from any channels. I can't find it on our cryptocurrency, can't find it on our Tronics, and I certainly can't find it anywhere on the Tron website or even here on their Twitter. I went ahead and took a look through the Tron weekly report to see if they addressed any of these issues. This is through 1/11, so perhaps they haven't addressed it there yet. That would make sense. However, it just seems strange that they just removed this completely and seem to be moving on with their lives as if they didn't violate verbal contract in grandiose fashion. The responses to this were pathetic, in my 2 cents, if I may be frank, simply due to the fact that in response to the question of Ponzi schemes, which was item number 6 out of 6, Justin Sun responded that they do not discriminate against the intent of the project, paraphrasing here, but rather look at all projects equally from a technical perspective. I think this is very analogous to the moral stance that Justin Sun and the Tron team has taken in awarding not only Ponzi schemes, but also, again, being extremely, extremely kind here, repurposing some of the information that is otherwise free to use in a very seemingly unethical fashion. Now, to circle back, I did some due diligence on the individuals who were reportedly the grand prize winner. Now, here's another interesting thing. In the actual thread, it says that they're the grand prize winner, but in the now missing and removed Justin Sun response, it said that these individuals were the second grand prize winner. Now, given that Justin has removed his response, there's no way to corroborate this information, but in my due diligence, I found one Christopher Hughes, an individual who is a real person. I actually logged into my personal LinkedIn to take a look. I don't have it logged in here, so I'm not going to bore you with that for the sake of brevity, but he actually has been working heavily with the Ethereum ecosystem. My hypothesis, and I cannot confirm one way or another, is that Christopher Hughes is an individual working on the Ethereum ecosystem that saw a chance to get some extra cash by porting some of these existing applications over to the Tron ecosystem. Again, I have no way to corroborate this information, not least because Christopher Hughes is not someone I'm connected with on LinkedIn, but also because we're missing any corroborating information from Justin Sun. And again, I find it very strange that it seems that they're not circling back to talk about any of this. They're just simply moving on as if nothing ever happened. Again, this is something that we've seen a lot from projects like EOS, projects like Tron that use delegated proof of stake. There's a fundamental lack of transparency, not only due to the potential invalidity, invalid nature of some of the blockchain data, given that this can be easily rendered immutable because of the delegated architecture, because of the individuals in the Pareto principle, the amount of individuals who can choose said delegates, but also some of the voracious marketing that potentially draws into question some of the ethical stances of the individuals therein. Now again, none of this is ironclad, none of this is concrete. There's always new information coming out, and there's been weirder things to happen, not only in cryptocurrency, but in the entirety of financial technology. Let me know what you think of this story below in the comments or on Discord, because after all, my personal opinion is that Tron is a long-running Chinese attempt at something. I don't know what. Perhaps eventually the connections that they have will evolve into a blockchain similar to the Ethereum network that is compliant with Chinese law and regulation, mushrooming into a fantastic application for China as a whole. It's a growing economy after all. Or perhaps this is more of a wild, wild west attempt at a cash grab, cobbling together architecture in a way that is more concurrent with how Chinese business practices flagrantly violate terms and conditions and intellectual property quite regularly. This is something that is very, very empirically evident. If you're just looking at, the mainstream media news, even talking about Chinese handling of intellectual property and how it is indeed one of the most tenuous regions in terms of enforcement and dissemination of what would otherwise be prohibited intellectual property. And again, none of this is concrete. This is just information that's out in the public domain, and you can draw your own conclusions from that. Let me know what you think of that. Moving right along, we have a few other pieces of information to take a look at. Kind of circling back to this delegated proof of stake architecture, I'm beginning to use the term architecture more, simply because there has been a fascinating distinction pointed out by one Emin Gun Serer. This man is a giant that is standing on the shoulder of giants, really huge intellect on this guy, and he makes information about blockchain architecture and some of the more technical capacities therein so accessible for individuals who are even just beginning in the space, and it gives you great starting points. So circling back, I'm calling this delegated proof of stake architecture and not consensus algorithm for a specific reason. Now let's jump into why. This is so interesting. So proof of work and proof of stake, it turns out, are not actually consensus algorithms proper. Rather, they are Sybil control mechanisms. Now, forgive me, my computer science friends out there, this is going to be a rough analogy. However, when doing my research, it really helped to reinforce my understanding of the concept, even if it's not a perfect analogy. So imagine a network and a DDoS, or direct denial of service attack. Let's say you're on GitHub, and suddenly GitHub experiences a DDoS attack. Now, GitHub has no way to verify what traffic is legitimate and what traffic is coming from this DDoSing source. So, realistically, all GitHub sees is a huge uptick in traffic that makes it extremely difficult to deal with providing the services that it normally provides. Now, with that said, maybe the individual who is committing the DDoS attack has the majority of network requests, or maybe they do not. For our analogy, it's not too relevant. However, you may be thinking, well, with a recent Ethereum Classic 51% attack, in a decentralized system such as a blockchain, this majority or minority stake becomes extremely relevant. This is why having a Sybil control mechanism is so critical and important. Now, proof of work and proof of stake do so with slightly different approaches. Proof of work says, listen, if you want to have some kind of participation in the network, you got to have skin in the game through hashing power and actual mining equipment. Proof of stake says, listen, if you want to have any kind of say in the network, you got to have, again, skin in the game, only this time, instead of having mining equipment, you have a proportional share of the network. You basically have to purchase half the network to in turn destroy it. So both mechanisms are unique in their approaches, but serve the same wide arc of function as Sybil control mechanisms. Now, equally interesting is the actual consensus mechanism is how the computers and how the nodes, in the network communicate and through which parameters they are allowed to do such. These include methods such as proven Byzantine fault tolerance, proven Byzantine fault tolerance, Ben-Or, Tendermint/Cosmos, Avalanche, etc. And now these are terms that we don't see used near as often in the cryptocurrency space. You see a lot of talk about proof of work, proof of stake, delegated proof of work. What's going on with that? Delegated proof of stake, sorry. It's delayed proof of work. See, there's a lot of acronyms going on here. However, we don't see a lot of talk about proven Byzantine fault tolerance. And this is the first I've heard of Ben-Or, surprisingly. And I did my own due diligence on that, and I have a litany of information that I'm going to be digging through about these consensus algorithms, very heady, high-level computer science stuff. And it's exciting. This just goes to show how new the space is. All kinds of new information, even for people who have been in the space for a great amount of time, and that's what makes it so exciting. I'm not a computer scientist, and this new information provided by individuals who have their own specialities and are highly competent in their own area of expertise are able to disseminate this information in a relatable way that in turn benefits the space as a whole. So I found this fascinating. If you found this distinction equally interesting, please leave a like and let me know what you think of it in the comments or on Discord. After all, this stuff is really the meat of the cryptocurrency space. And if you found it really interesting, let me know, and I might actually go ahead and do a more higher technical overview of this kind of stuff in some more videos, just because I find it fascinating. All right, speaking of fascinating, how about NASA? NASA's pretty fascinating, unless you think the Earth is flat and NASA's a conspiracy organization. Maybe they are. I don't know. I'm not getting into that. We're not doing that today, guys, because NASA, whether you love them or hate them, whether they're hiding the flat Earth, which I don't think they are. Yeah, I think the Earth's a hollow donut. Boom. We're going to prove it using NASA's blockchain. All right, bit of humor there. The big takeaway here is the Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA here in the United States, is working alongside NASA to manage air traffic using blockchain technology. You can see here the actual 14-page paper coming out saying air traffic management blockchain infrastructure for security, authentication, and privacy. This is becoming increasingly relevant, especially with the proliferation of drone technology. You may remember at the Hartsted, Hapsfield, I think it is, over in the UK, they've recently had a multiple instances in which drones have meandered onto the airport runway and have just sat there and have caused huge amounts of flight delays, tens of thousands of people unable to get where they need to go, causing huge amounts of economic disruption, all because of one flyboy hanging out on the runway. And having these kind of air traffic management systems that are both flexible and have the reflexivity, I guess you could say, to see where these drones are, where these individual aviation components are in any given point in time in the ecosystem, and which ones aren't allowed could be huge. After all, just rough hypothesis, maybe this becomes the standard and the FAA creates a regulatory system and framework by which all drones have to have maybe an RFID chip through which they interact with the federally mandated network to assure that they are not flying in airspace that is otherwise restricted. Now, maybe this sounds like Big Brother, but you also have to imagine that Venezuelan dictator President Nicolas Maduro was almost assassinated by a bootleg drone, and this is in the hyper-impoverished, starving country of Venezuela. So individuals in dire circumstances can utilize this kind of technology for very nefarious purposes. So having a management system as such can prove to be a great benefit, or potentially a great detriment. Really, after all, it's up to you to draw your own conclusions as to on what side of the fence you fall. And perhaps maybe there's not even a fence. Maybe there's an open field of potential opinions one could hold on this fascinating potential application for new financial technology. Now, here's another thing, a list of cryptocurrency law firms. I thought you guys would find this useful. Potentially, hopefully you never have to utilize them for purposes of legal defense. Hopefully you will only have to utilize them proactively, maybe to help you with your taxes or get an idea for businesses. But this is just a great article that I found that just aggregated a great collection of various blockchain lawyers, and it's a good chunk of them, probably about 10 or 15 of them. So this is just something that will be in the description for you to use as reference material for your own benefit. Do what you will with it, apply it, disregard it, give it to friends who find it relevant, post it on your website, just good stuff. And another fantastic article that I found from Mitchell Moose, really here at Crypto Slate. They're doing a great job, just a fantastic job. I'm a big stickler for well-written and well-researched news. And Michael Moose is always showing his integrity by talking about how journalism should be done in a transparent, forthright manner, and he always does a great job circling back, citing his sources, and just saying what he knows, and staying empirical. So I'd like to give shout out and credit where credit's due. Crypto Slate, Michael Moose, doing a great job, guys. Alright, so this is a fantastic article from the Blockfolio CEO, which is a very handy little app that lets you track your cryptocurrency portfolio on the go. Also gives you little notifications about the happenings, and you can set price alerts. So if you're trying to actively manage your portfolio while on the fly, a fantastic resource. Now, I'm not going to go into all the article because what fun would that be? You guys got to, decide whether or not it's up to your standards if you want to jump in and read it. But with that said, this guy goes in and talks a lot about the main takeaways of how to deal with a prolonged and intense bear market. And the big three are: be proactive, not reactive about conserving your resources. Focus on the business's core value proposition. And stockpile during years of plenty, and buy when there's blood in the streets. Blood in the streets is a quote from Warren Buffett talking about how when the market is down, that's the time to buy, and when the irrational exuberance of new all-time highs is echoing through the corridors of Wall Street, now may be the time for a quiet exit of the marketplace. Now, again, I'm not going to go into all the details here because the individual interview does expand upon these points, offering some very interesting insights. And again, let me know what you think of this below in the comments. For now, that's really all we have. We don't have a timer anymore, considering that I did some stuff with YouTube, and now I can make longer videos. Woo! I'm not a YouTube expert. I just like giving you guys information, keeping you up to date on the happenings of the crypto space, and you guys seem to like it too. So let me know again what you think of this. Feel free to join the Discord and we can chat about it. All links below in the description, of course, because after all, you gotta cite your sources, guys. With that said, my name is Paul. We are Cryptide. Much love, guys. I'll talk to you guys next time. Oh yeah, and the tide is rising.